When I first got into this job years and years ago, we used to do what I call old-fashioned social work. And when we were exposed to the family team meetings and the concept of the individualized course of action, it brought me back to that era. We went through a period where we were social workers, then we were investigators. But for me, the family team conferencing really takes on the spirit of old-fashioned social work. You really care about the families, you work with the families, and they work with you to come up with a solution to whatever the problems might be.
And for me, it was during one of your trainings when technical assistance persons came from Clark Foundation, and they were talking about it. And as they talked, my first reaction was, "Oh, we already do that. We meet with families all the time." But as I listened, I realized that it was something different. And I guess the key word for me was to dwell on the strengths, and that was when I was hooked. And then I began to think about all the kind of cases that we could bring to the table and relook at them and maybe find some hope in them.
We have been interested in reforming child welfare, making child welfare better for kids and families for 30 years. And I think for the most part, much of our time and effort has been around looking at some of the structural changes that need to happen. More workers, better caseloads, different practices. And we've been promoting family-centered services, family preservation services for a long time. But I don't think it's gone far enough. I don't think that we really have made a difference in the practice on what really happens between a worker and a family. And the individualized course of action, the family team meetings, is a way, I think, of putting into practice everything that we've said for a long time about what makes a difference.
So it's just been a very good way of bringing everybody in to talk about what the key issues are, what the key barriers are that are blocking success, particularly when it deals with a child in foster care and trying to reunify them with the family, to do better planning, to talk more about the common expectations of everybody, what everybody can bring to the table.
I think initially we saw that family team meetings would be an additional part of work, that on top of doing all of our other work, we had to start doing family team meetings. And after we got into the family team meetings, began to realize that it was a part of your way of work, that by doing a family team meeting, it brought all the providers together at one point, and actually in the long run saves time and saves money, because you get together, you have a unified plan as opposed to talking to one another on the phone or having to fax information back and forth. You're all in one room. The other important thing is that you start to know the other partners in the community, that if you know somebody who works at social services, it's much easier later on to call them up and have a conversation about how can we work with this family when you've met them and been in a meeting. So I think it's pulling the people together, and that it's a new way of work. It's not addition to your former way of work, and if you look at it that way, it's never really going to be integrated.
I've been involved in several family team conferences now, and the thing that I appreciate the most about it is it's a chance to get everybody there and to hear the same message being told to everybody at the same time. I think another great positive of it is the family can take a little bit more ownership of what's being said, what's being done, and it's not an issue as much of the department is doing things to their family as they're making changes in their own lives and taking ownership of that. And additionally, it's another positive that the supporting people there, the relatives, friends, family, other community organization people can help take ownership and help this family out, where it almost makes it easier for you as a worker because everybody's assigned a task, and it makes it much more easier to do.
Well, I was a protective investigator in the early 90s, and I remember going out working with families, and oftentimes we would, as the investigator, you just make the observations as to versus the allegations, what you think happened, and report to your supervisors, oftentimes by phone right then, as to what you were observing. and the supervisor would make a decision whether or not you needed to pick the children up or, give you some direction. But the family didn't have much input. It was strictly a decision between the investigator and the department supervisor. So the difference now is that families are being asked, what kinds of services do you need and how can we help you make these things happen for yourself and for your families? And families didn't have input before, and that they are very much surprised now when we bring them in and talk about their strengths. You could just see the whole facade of the person change, their whole demeanor change. They go from very rigid and kind of guarded to kind of softening. And wow, these people are actually listening to me. They are asking me what I need, and they've been nice to me. They want to hear what I have to say.